Okay, it's a couple minutes after 7, so let's get started. We have a fair amount of stuff to cover tonight, and I think we'll start with our candidates who are here. And Sean Champagne, you're here. I understand you're going to take responsibility for emceeing this and timing and everything. So I'm going to just turn it right over to you and let you get started, and I'll keep admitting people. So thank you.
Yeah, hey Paula, thank you. Sounds good. So yes, we are here to have anybody who is running for public office in the county speak in front of Queen Anne Community Council. Everyone gets 5 minutes, and we have a list of people that signed up, and I'm just going to jump right into it. So basically, everybody gets 5 minutes to speak about whatever they would like to speak about. And I am going to start with Tyler Crone.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. I am so delighted to be here tonight with you all, and I'm so thankful for the Queen Anne Community Council, for the civic engagement, for all you do for this neighborhood I've called home for nearly the past 2 decades. My name is Tyler Crone, and I'm running for the open house seat in the 36th, this place where I've gotten the great joy of raising my 3 kids, because I see the challenges we face growing ever more complex. I entered this race with a particular focus and perspective on having partnered with communities, governments, the UN and the World Health Organization to rise to and respond to another health and social justice crisis of our time, HIV and AIDS. And that public health expertise and that pandemic response experience is what I seek to bring at this moment as we continue to navigate COVID-19, as it continues to disrupt our lives, so that we're learning from what we did well, where we fell short, and how we recover and build resilience as we continue to see this through. I am really also entering this race at a critical moment where we need state legislatures to lead because of key aspects where our rights are being rolled back. I enter this race also as a human rights advocate, having been on the front lines of advancing sexual and reproductive health and rights around this world and here at home. And I am gravely concerned that we are shortly facing the rollback of 50 years of legal precedent of Roe v. Wade. And that is a critical area in which Washington State also must lead to advance, enhance, and hold up reproductive choice and reproductive health. Let me tell you a little bit about me as a mom and as a person who has lived in Queen Anne and gotten, as I said, the great joy and privilege of raising my 3 kids here. I entered this race also because I wanted to see a focus on families, a focus on excellence in our schools. And having had a child who is a Ballard High School graduate at the center school and at Co-Elementary around the corner from where we live, I know that the disruption of these past 2 years have been extraordinary, and they have a continued impact on our kids with their learning loss. They have a continued impact on our teachers and our administrators as they've had to step into frontline response roles, had to fill the gaps, had to innovate, had to pivot. And that is in particular one piece that I didn't expect to be having to run on: school safety and the violence that has held the headlines in the past few weeks. So, I think that for anyone with a child in elementary school, we think schools should be safe. They should be sites of joy and learning and opportunity. And what we have seen has been horrific. Safe, smart, responsible gun laws to reduce and prevent violence are common sense. And what we've seen happen in classrooms in Texas and in Connecticut and in Florida and in Colorado, and the list goes on, is not. The one piece that I also want to hone in on, and if there's opportunity, Sean and Paula, I'd love to have a moment for a couple of questions so that I can hear what's top of mind for all of you who have been leading and engaging and building our community. The piece when I talk to voters in Queen Anne and in Magnolia and across our district is really this desire for healthy, safe, and livable communities with thriving small businesses. And that is a particular perspective that I wish to bring some common sense value to, and a public health approach, which is around prevention, which is around community engagement, and which is around data-driven accountability. I will pause here and see if there's a quick question perhaps that I could answer from any of our stakeholders, because I'd really love to know what's on your mind. Thank you all. Are we gonna, Sean, do we have time for that, or are we out of time for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do have about 45 seconds left. If anyone has any questions for Tyler, you know, I'm sure we can ask a question. But otherwise, if there aren't any questions, we can move on to the next campaign.
So just to, then if this isn't the best format for questions, I will leave my contact information in the chat so that we can be in continued conversation. And I look forward to the candidate forum that'll happen on June 15th. And I thank you all again for making our community one that is beautiful and close-knit. And I appreciate everything you do. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Tyler, so much. Next, I would like to call on behalf of the Julia Reed campaign, Segar Amini.
Yes, thank you, Sean. I'm Sahar, and I am Julia's campaign manager, and she sends her regrets that she's not able to join here tonight, but she had her summer kickoff event, as many of you already probably know. And so she wasn't able to join here tonight. So I was able to come out and represent her, able to come in on the June event to speak to you more on the issues and her policies and priorities. As many of you very well know, Julia is a workforce policy expert and an advocate for youth and racial justice, and a lifelong Seattleite. She is running because she sees the 36 and Washington State are at a critical turning point where the welcoming communities and the innovative Olympia that keep our communities unaffordable, fail to address the climate emergency, and aren't investing enough in our education and workforce systems. Julia thinks we can make different choices that will build a future of shared prosperity for everyone in Washington. As the candidate with the most public policy experience, she knows how to create legislation that is innovative, implementable, and will drive meaningful change for our district, city, and the state. Julia is running for the State House of Representatives to invest in affordable housing, environmental resilience, education, and workers. Her top priorities, if elected, are creating affordable housing and reducing homelessness by growing our housing stock through statewide inclusionary zoning, investment in affordable and social housing, and investment in permanent supportive housing, addressing climate change, ensuring a just transition to a carbon-free future, and boosting community resilience against climate change-induced extreme weather events like heat, cold, heavy rains, and smoke, truly serving our children by fully investing in public education from pre-K to post-secondary education, and investing in our workers, creating more innovative and inclusive statewide workforce development, and expanding work-based learning and youth apprenticeship programs. Julia was the first person to enter the race and has consistently been the top fundraiser, raising nearly $110,000. 75% of her donations are from donors giving $150 or less, showing her broad base of support from the community. She's one of the top 5 fundraisers in the state and non-incumbent races. She's been endorsed by Fuse Washington, the state's largest progressive organization, the King County Young Democrats, Washington State Labor Council, and the American Federation of Teachers, as well as Jesse Farrell, Colin Echo Hawk, I'm sorry, John Burbank, and many elected officials like Deborah Juarez and Girmay Zahilai. I'm sorry. Gonna have to my accent of foreigness immigrant. Julia grew up in this city as a daughter of educators and was an active Sea Scout, which helped grow her love for our local maritime heritage. She went to public schools, Summit K-12, and the Holy Names Academy High School. She's an experienced and innovative public servant and public policy professional who has helped make change and with every level of government. In the Obama administration, in the State Department, she worked in the Israeli-Palestinian peace process and international civil military relations. In the city of Seattle, she was the senior policy advisor revamping the city's youth employment and youth workforce programs. As the social impact consultant, she's supporting apprenticeship programs in Washington State and across the nation. She's been active in local politics for many years, serving as the vice chair of the King County Young Democrats, policy director and chair of the 36th Legislative District Democrats, and the fundraiser for Persist PAC Washington, a community-based PAC raising money to help Black women run for the Washington State Legislature. She's active in her local community as a long-time board member of the YMCA Social Impact Center, the region's largest provider of housing for young adults exiting homelessness. The center also focuses on serving young adults exiting foster care, criminal justice system, and gang involvement, and which is an important issue for Julia. She lives in Uptown and is parishioner at St. Anne Catholic Church, and she has that's yeah. I am
Thank
gonna
you,
just
Sehar. That is time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you speaking on Julia's behalf. I think
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry for like the brief lapses on that. I'm just gonna fall back on my immigrantness and my accent and my English second language, all that fun stuff.
No, that was great. Thank you so much. So
you.
next I'm gonna call on Jeff Manson.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Manson. I'm also running for the open house seat in the 36th district. I am a state administrative law judge, a labor leader, and a disability community advocate. As an administrative law judge, I resolve disputes that people and businesses have with state government. For example, we do public assistance appeals, unemployment benefits, child support, child abuse and neglect, vulnerable adult abuse and neglect allegations, facility licensing. Generally, if somebody disagrees with a state agency, pretty much in every case, almost every case, they'll come to us. I've been doing that for 13 years, and I see every day how state laws and state budgets affect people, including the most vulnerable individuals in our state. I've also been involved in my community since the 4th grade when I co-founded my elementary school's Earth Club after reading a book for kids on the environment. It taught me that one person can make a difference, and I've been restlessly trying to solve community and public policy problems since then. I was lucky to go to law school. I went to Seattle University School of Law, where I graduated with honors and an emphasis in poverty and inequality law. As a young attorney, I represented people with disabilities in public assistance appeals, the same types of hearings I now adjudicate. And during that process, I saw how people with disabilities struggled with our legal system. And so I gathered disability and legal experts, and we wrote a guide for judicial officers on how to accommodate people in legal proceedings. And that guide is still used by many judicial officers across the state today. Within my own agency, I've been part of our rulemaking regarding our ADA policy, both for our own employees, but also for those seeking services through our agency, including some innovative reforms of accommodation for people with cognitive impairments in our hearings. And although administrative law judges like myself are state employees, for the first almost 40 years of our agency's history, we were not allowed to collectively bargain. And we were not on a salary grid like most state employees, and we had some workplace issues. So a few years ago, I organized my colleagues and we successfully lobbied the legislature to extend collective bargaining rights to us. And we were able to bargain, got a contract, and last year, my colleagues unanimously elected me as president of our new union. So when I see a problem, like I said, I'm a restless personality. I get out of my chair and work with others to fix it. And so now I'm running for the House of Representatives to fix bigger problems that we see in our neighborhoods: housing affordability, supporting working families, environmental and climate justice, and keeping our communities safe. I've lived in the 36th district for 15 years. I live in Greenwood now. Before that, I was in Ballard for about 10 or 12 years, and would just be absolutely honored to have the opportunity to represent this district in Olympia. I've been endorsed by former 36th Representative Mary Lou Dickerson, the Washington State Labor Council, the Environment and Climate Caucus of the Washington State Democrats, the 36th District Democrats, and the King County Democrats, and many of our neighbors and other organizations across the state. Would be honored to have your vote for me in the primary and hopefully in the general as well. And I don't know if the format's, as Tyler said, I don't know if the format's right for questions, but I see I have about another minute. So if anyone has any quick questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your time. Jeff, I'm assuming there's not going to be a lot of questions in this format, so I am just going to pass it over to the next candidate, Waylon Robert.
That works. I'll just put my contact info in the chat. If anyone has any questions, please give me a call, shoot me an email. I would love to chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, it's really good to be here, and I'm grateful for your time and your ears, and I look forward to your questions. My name is Waylon Robert. The 36th District is my lifelong home. I love this place. It's a really special community we live in. My mother's ashes are scattered in Parsons Garden. So I'm running to be in the long haul for us, to stand up for working people, to stand up for middle-class people, and to stand up and solve the problems for our quality of life. I've been passionate about historic preservation in communities since I was a little kid. When I was 12 years old, I nominated one of our state's oldest hotels for the most endangered buildings list, the Bush House, which has now been renovated and accessible to the public. To me, when I went down and shared a podium in my Catholic school uniform with Executive Constantine, it showed me the power that we all harness as individuals. As I grew older and went to the Evergreen State College, I raised over $300,000 for the Hoquiam Library. You know, Ballard is my lifelong home, but there's a bigger state than just the 36th district. And working in Hoquiam gave me a lot of perspective. It also showed me that the Hoquiam Library was not the only library short on needing repairs. I came back to the legislature, secured $80,000 for a statewide study, working with many of the friends I had made in the first place, securing that first $250,000. We determined the total backlog, and then with a big map of the state of Washington with every strategic district represented by a member serving on the budget committee, I successfully, with the help of many others, established a $50 million grant program for libraries. To date, that program has invested over $29.9 million to supporting communities around our state. The past couple of years, I've worked for Forterra Northwest, a land trust. I'm really passionate about the environment because I believe it's our existence. And in the 36th district, we have many environmentally dependent industries like our fishing industry. In fact, last year we didn't have a king crab fishery because of the warming ocean. So I want to roll my sleeves up and work on what's important to us. And, you know, I realize the district is about 88% Democratic. So you're probably wondering why me? Well, I'm going to listen and I'm going to get to work. And on the doors these days, I'm hearing a lot of people are unsafe. I'm hearing it's hard to conduct business because honestly, if someone breaks into your business 5 times in the course of 6 months, your insurance might double. So I'm going to work hard to ensure that we have more resources for drug treatment, for mental health facilities, and that it's not that we don't only have a single officer for the Magnolia and Queen Anne precinct. You know, I'd like to work with Councilmember Nelson and Mayor Harrell to match their efforts on a state level. I'm running to protect our maritime industries too, which are 30% of our city's tax base. I'm running to get to work on capital budget requests for fixing things like our Magnolia and Big Hal playfields and making sure we don't have a community center where water runs down the wall. I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to work and listen. I'm here to be a leader on public safety and our quality of life. Doing this has been quite a journey for a 25-year-old. I've raised over $85,000. I'm honored to be endorsed by a few people in this room, people I've never met before, but I sat down at a coffee shop and learned how we can address these complicated problems we're facing. I'm honored to be endorsed by a handful of members of our sitting members of the state legislature, nearly 5 unions representing hardworking folks in the construction and maritime trade. And so I'm here today to listen if you have any questions, and I look forward to banging on your door, putting, you know, I may fidget my feet a little bit because it's you know, your feet start to hurt after knocking doors for 4 to 5 hours a day. But we'll be happy to answer any questions at this point and appreciate everything you do for the livability of our beautiful community.
Thank you, Waylon. Great to hear from you as well. And I have one final candidate here listed tonight, and that is Nicole Gomez. Nicole, are you here?
I have not seen her come in, Sean, unless somebody else is representing her. She's on somebody else's Zoom.
Gotcha. Yeah, we had her listed as tentative, but
Okay.
not sure if she had replied. So if that is it, then that concludes the election portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. And thank you to all of the candidates for taking time out of your, I'm sure, very busy schedules these days. So we hope to see all of you on the 15th of June when we'll have a candidates forum and we'll get to hear more from you. And I suspect there will be some time for questions then. So thank you again very much. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting too, if you want to hear what we're doing and what we're interested in. So thank you. So the next thing on the agenda that I have is I've asked our friends in Uptown Alliance to talk to us a little bit about their organization. And so we could learn a little bit more about how they operate, how they're different from Queen Anne Community Council, and how they're similar. So it's great that we share this gorgeous neighborhood and work together. So Rick, are you our designated speaker this evening? You're muted.
I figured that would happen. I am.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Introduce yourself and go ahead, yeah.
Sure. And I appreciate so much the invitation to come tonight. I do have to say that for the last week, I've been having trouble with my Zoom connection. So if I suddenly go mute or something, I might have to switch the video off, but I think I'll be able to get through all of this. So I'm Rick Hooper. I'm chair of Uptown Alliance. I've lived in Uptown for over 15 years now. And I've been involved in the Uptown Alliance just about all of that time. My work in Uptown grew as I left the city where I worked for 33 years. Now I do a lot of the same kinds of things, it seems, on a daily basis. I just don't get paid for it now. And so I have more time that I can devote to the community's activities. Paula asked if I could say a little bit about Uptown's priorities for this year, 2022. And basically, they fall into 3 different categories. I think one is something that we always seem to be trying to work on and do more with, growing the organization, involving more people in what's going on. It's difficult to get people to want to spend as much time to really help with our 100% volunteer powered organization. And we're always on the lookout. We've been making great progress actually over this last year in a number of different ways. Uptown formed about 22 years ago, and we have 3 active committees: land use.
Rick, we've lost you.
Review committee called the LURC. We have a Tidy Uptown committee. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yeah, we got the very first words of land use review.
Great. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Land use review committee, Tidy Uptown, a committee that formed last year to help with cleanup activities, graffiti renewal, and other kinds of public safety issues in the neighborhood. And then we have an executive committee, meets monthly, and we have about 15 people on our invitation list. About 10 people typically show up, and we get together monthly and discuss the progress, the status, and next steps. The second area of our 3 areas that we have worked a lot on this year has been what we call our grant programs. Last summer, the city contacted us and invited us to submit a funding application to Office of Economic Development. The city set aside funding for community groups to access funding to help with COVID economic renewal and economic development activity in the neighborhood. We could ask for up to 100,000. We asked for and got 100,000. And so we now are engaged in 4 separate grant funded activities. Requires a lot of oversight and administrative structure to keep this all going. Since we're 100% volunteer powered, we pretty much rely on the help of consultants that we've hired. First area, cleanup. We work with Uplift Northwest to come into Uptown every Wednesday morning. 3 staff people spend about 4 hours, and they clean up largely in the heart of Uptown, and the difference has been astounding. We think they collect unbelievable bags of trash, Sharpies, so to speak, the needles, and pick up around the public trash cans and so on. And the neighborhood has been much cleaner as a result of that activity, and we have that available into next year. Amplify the Arts District, we call it. Signal box art, which has just gone up. I don't know if people have noticed the 9 signal boxes, 1 more to go down in Uptown, that no longer are filled with graffiti and look fantastic. We were able to work with Urban Artworks and focus on BIPOC artists. And we weren't sure what response we would get, but 35 people, artists, applied, and we had an amazing group of talent that we were able to draw from. And the signal boxes are now wrapped. The next up are the banners that we hope to put in place soon. And we got a generous grant from the Seattle Storm, $15,000, to help with the both of those activities. The third program, networking and communications, we've got a staff person, not a staff person, a consultant now, working hard on database development to help us identify businesses in Uptown, get their contact information, be able to conduct outreach and other activity to engage those folks more in what's going on, and then finally help grow our newsletter into a much bigger, more productive way of communicating with the 1,300 people that are on our routine list to receive it. And then finally, we work with Pacific Public Affairs, a consultant to help us with business and policy making activity. They are quite well connected politically in Seattle, and they help us put together meetings with council members, the mayor's office, and so on, as we work on various sorts of transportation related issues primarily, but also Sound Transit 3 as time has gone on. Those are our 4 grant programs, and we're excited to have the funding, the consultant assistance, and the activity that's been now ongoing. All 4 are up and operating and will continue through the rest of this year. Now, Sound Transit 3, I saved the best till last here because it started last fall with the notice that Sound Transit was releasing their DEIS for Sound Transit 3. In particular, our work has focused on the new Seattle Center / Uptown station that will be either on Republican Street or Mercer Street. We moved into the new year, as we worked together over the last 3 or 4 months to put our letter together on all of this, it got more and more complex. And I have to say, the one huge misstep that we made that we are forever sorry for, Paula, is the paragraph that you folks put together and asked us to include in the letter that we inadvertently left out. It was not on purpose for sure. It was strictly because the weekend of the final weekend of our letter putting together took unbelievable amounts of work, was complicated, and involved lots of communication with lots of folks. But I've got if my camera was still on, I could show you the paragraph that I still have in front of me, and we promised to be working it into various activities. As a matter of fact, the comments went in on the 28th of April, and next up is the resolution that is before City Council Committee next week, the Transportation Committee. And I think the point of the paragraph, your paragraph, namely, make sure that Sound Transit develops in conjunction with transit and so on, that the appropriate connections and ties that can connect up with light rail as it moves into our community. That is particularly will be an issue during construction as well as post-construction. And the point of the city's resolution is to start to address some of the construction related issues. And I'll just end real fast by saying that we began our work looking at this Seattle Center Uptown station opportunity. Of course, light rail will be fantastic. Having a subway through the neighborhood is like a dream come true, and it will be such a positive benefit in the neighborhood in so many ways. 3 years ago, before we really knew much about what the implications would be, we thought Republican was the best alignment for various reasons, could really help with the Seattle Center connection as well as heart of Uptown. When the EIS came out, we reviewed it. We were able to have probably 5 or 6 meetings that included Sound Transit staff and City of Seattle staff to help us answer questions that we had, really look at issues in more depth. And about 2 months ago, I think all of the groups working on this issue in our neck of the woods, so to speak, came to the conclusion that the Republican station would be extremely problematic and would not work at all well for the resident organizations at Seattle Center, as well as folks living in the neighborhood. So we turned our attention to Mercer, which surprised us in some ways that we would begin to do that, because 3 years ago we thought, Mercer, how on earth could you think about doing a cut and cover station dig down the center of Mercer for about 3 blocks and have traffic move in any way possible? So we focused a lot of attention with the last couple of months with Sound Transit staff on exactly that topic. How would cars, pedestrians, businesses still continue to exist? How can we keep construction from being the death knell to Uptown? In particular, a lot of the connections, transportation issues you raised in your paragraph are exact questions that we need answers to as we now go forward to look at Mercer. The city's resolution next week is designed in part to make some key comments along the entire ST3 corridor. But for the station here, they want to suggest strongly that the focus shift to Mercer now, and we need to get a lot more information over the next 6 months or so between now and the time when the final EIS comes out, so that we can truly assess that alternative and understand better what mitigation requirements might need to be that we can then lobby for. So that's, I think I'll stop there and look forward to continue. And thank you again, Paula, for inviting me. We love the new working relationship we have going on with Queen Anne Community Council right now in many different ways on many different project kind of areas. And we are excited about the opportunities to work together more as time goes on. So happy to.
Thank you, Rick. I'll hold you to that about the paragraph. We had the opportunity to echo that in a couple of different ways, so it wasn't entirely lost, but we'll, I'm sure, have more opportunities to comment. So are there any questions for Rick about
Yes.
Uptown Alliance and how they function? It's obviously a different kind of organization than our community council, but with some of the same goals and some of the same committees, obviously, that focus on the same issues. So I look forward to working together more as we go forward and make the community better for everybody. Andrew Lewis is here, so he has a question for you, Rick.
Paula, thank you. And here, I'll adjust the brightness of this light
That's
behind my
okay.
head after I ask the question. But Rick, I appreciated the opportunity to sit down and talk to you and some of the other board members of Uptown Alliance about the Link Light Rail alignment the other day. And we got the invitation today to start marking up the resolution for the city's position on the Sound Transit alignment. So we'll be in touch on that follow-up, but it was good to have that meeting well in advance of that opportunity. And we should be in a good position to incorporate, our shared goals into that body of work. So thank you.
Great, and thank you, Andrew, so much for your tireless work for the 7th District. And we really appreciate the opportunities to meet with you and for your comments and support and help.
Are there any questions for Rick? Because if not, we're going to hear from our council member, Mr. Lewis.
Oh, is that the transition? That's great.
That's the
All right.
transition. Thank you, Rick, very much. We'll talk soon.
Well,
Thank you.
excellent. Well, it is great to be here, everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation. I believe Parker, as per usual, is here as well. So
Yes.
if I'm not immediately available for follow-up on anything we discussed today, feel free to reach out to Parker Dawson, my district director. And as always, we will turn that around for you. So thank you so much. So Paula, I'm mostly here at your invitation. I'm happy to talk about whatever you or other members of the community council want to discuss. There's obviously a lot going on. Every week there's a couple of new things that we're doing. So if you want to maybe provide a little bit of direction on what you think our time would be best spent on, I'm happy to dive into that.
Sure, I think, I'm sorry, did somebody start to have a question? Okay, anyway, I think one of the things that would be interesting to hear about is there are a lot of things going on. Obviously, the mayor is making some pretty big strides in terms of addressing encampment cleanups, homelessness, working with the King County Regional Health or Regional Homelessness Authority. And so maybe if there's anything, just a quick update on what's happening, maybe in particular that might help us here in Queen Anne. And I guess the other thing that comes immediately to mind is any progress or movement in terms of having, more healthcare responders for people who, are on our streets in crisis, but are not involved in crimes. So that seems to still be an issue for us to not have a good, clear resolution for that. And if anybody else has questions, feel free to chime in too, so.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and talk about homelessness first. As you were just indicating, there's a lot that has kind of changed in the mayoral policy on homelessness in the last several months, which has been really productive and helpful. It really shows the critical role of having an active, involved, and proactive chief executive for the city in service delivery at lots of different levels, not just homelessness. But, for years, there was no, unified system, on the executive side to sort through and resolve calls for service that were related to homelessness. So there was no way to really functionally provide outreach to encampments. There was no streamlined way to get people access to shelter services, what have you. And the Durkin administration essentially had a policy of having encampments stay in place until the resolution of the COVID emergency, which was, an untenable and unsupported policy as far as the council was concerned. But with the implementer's veto, she was basically able to just, do that. That's changed in the last 5 months. And Mayor Harrell and his team have centralized homelessness response into one entity called the Unified Care Team. Previously, 6 different entities and different departments triaged various different aspects, mostly based on what property a homeless encampment was on or what right-of-way an encampment was on. That all now gets sorted through one entity called the Unified Care Team instead of going to 6 different things that squabble and argue over jurisdiction and whose responsibility it is to do what. That's accompanied as of this week with a public-facing dashboard that's going to be at homelessness.seattle.gov. This is a repository of all of the data and information related to the city's homelessness response. This is a place where members of the public can go and view what the public investment is in homelessness response and services, where it goes, a number of shelter and housing units that are in the pipeline, where you can send a request for outreach and services in an interactive dashboard that is public facing and that can be accessed at any time, again, at homelessness.seattle.gov. If nothing else, this dashboard shows and presents how daunting the task in front of us is. It includes data from the point in time count from the King County Regional Homelessness Authority showing how many people there are experiencing homelessness in the city and King County at large, and really lays bare the daunting task in front of us and the insufficiency of the resources that are allocated. But that said, it also shows that we're committed to more efficiently and effectively executing with the resources we have to get people inside and to make sure that we're increasing the quantity, but also the quality of the shelter that we're offering to people. So I encourage people to take a look at that new resource. Certainly send feedback so I can let the team that works with and updates that dashboard know if there's some issue with it or something that would be helpful. But that is a new resource as of yesterday. It looks pretty good, but again, a dashboard's only as good as the strategy and metrics and resources we put into resolving the problem it's monitoring. So, but it is a helpful public-facing resource. So that's a general overview of where we are 5 months in with the Harrell administration. There's going to be more things that the council and the mayor are going to promulgate over the course of the summer as relates to homelessness. Like we're almost certainly going to expand and protect the Just Care program. We're probably going to be in a position in partnership with the State Department of Commerce to open several new tiny house villages and other kind of sheltering opportunities, as well as just a massive amount of acquisition of permanent housing based on the federal, state, and local support. We're putting well over $100 million a year now, as of this year, into permanent supportive housing through the Jumpstart program that the council passed several years ago. So it's likely this dashboard is going to start getting filled up with even more housing and shelter assets coming online. We're trying to maintain a ratio of 3 units of housing for every shelter unit that we add, in keeping with the best practices on that. But that's the part of the dashboard I'm most excited about, is seeing all of our housing assets in one place where the public can interact with them and see it even to the detail of the specific building, the specific operator, and the neighborhood, which you'll see when you go interact with it. But this is a resource the council's been requesting for years. The Durkin administration had no interest in it. It's great to see within 5 months that Mayor Harrell has produced it, which is great. So we are looking forward to continue to working with Mayor Harrell on this and other shared council priorities.
Can
So
I
that's
ask
the
a
business update.
quick question? I'm sorry, can I ask
Yeah.
a quick question? I don't know why I'm getting that feedback. Anyway, I understand that the data or the dashboard, the database, will be upgraded only quarterly. Is that accurate? Or will updates become more frequent? I know that the press release was for quarterly updates, but
Yeah, I mean, for now, it's anticipated to be quarterly.
okay.
But over time, I would imagine we can do it more frequently than that. But and it might also depend, Paula, on what the input is.
Right.
So I think the Office of Housing is updating the housing as it happens. So that might be happening quicker.
Okay.
But certainly some metrics, most of the city's reporting is quarterly.
Okay.
So I think that just as a general policy, that's the outward facing message, because a lot of this is just aggregating existing databases into a dashboard, right?
Yeah.
But I can definitely keep people posted if it's updated more frequently.
Okay, we also have a couple of things that have come in chat. If you don't mind, we can shift gears a little bit. So 2 things. We have a request for an update on any transportation projects in Queen Anne, and then also any kind of update on the status of Smith Cove Park and the, of course, the off-leash area that would be incorporated there. We're hoping that that is still somewhere in the budget. So maybe you can give us some updates on those 2 items.
Yeah, I'll start with the Smith Cove Park, because that's related to the Metropolitan Park District renewal.
Right.
I think, as I mentioned last time I was here, which may have been in January, I don't completely recall,
Yep.
That among the new things I'm doing at the council, I get to be the president of the Park District as we go into renewing our 6-year cycle for projects and funding. So the Smith Cove Park project is one of 5 projects that is going to carry over as a first priority for the Park District. So the Park District, and we got this, both from the Parks Department as well as the Board of Park Commissioners, that in the list of front-loaded projects, Smith Cove Park is going to be one of the 5. So that means Smith Cove Park is going to be among the first or the first priority when the Park District is renewed. So that's encouraging news. I mean, it's disappointing that that project is not further along, given the timeline and given everything that has gone into advocating for and pushing for that project. But it is at the tip of the next funding cycle to get to get done and how they're triaging the projects. As far as whether that means it's the originally envisioned project, including the off-leash area, I'm fairly confident it is, and we can check on that and we can send that to you, Paula, just to confirm. But I don't think that front-loading the project involves any design changes. I think it's just a matter of when it's going to be completed, and it is, like I said, either going to be the first thing or one of the first things in the renewal of the park district. So that's Smith Cove Park. On transportation, you know, there's not a whole lot that's happening from SDOT, much of anywhere, from what I can tell, aside from removing non-conforming crosswalks in Greenwood. So, you know, we continue to work on, you know, a project with Queen Anne Greenways to rewild the Florentia Arterial. We're working with neighbors on 10th Avenue West to install traffic calming, which we've been working on for 2 years. You know, this isn't unique to Queen Anne. All my colleagues are having problems getting anything done with SDOT. It's partly, you know, a capacity problem, and I think it's partly a culture problem in the department. But that's one that we're going to continue, obviously, to work on. And as always, Paula, if there are community council transportation priorities for updates, obviously, as I just discussed with Rick, we're going to be considering a resolution soon for the city's positions on the Sound Transit 3 route. And that's something that we've solicited feedback from a broad array of stakeholders. I don't know if we've received or incorporated feedback from the Queen Anne Community Council yet, but we're happy to. We still have time. So if there are some highlights from the Seattle, from the Sound Transit 3 rather, please let us know and we'll work to get them into that resolution.
Will do. And I apologize, I don't know if that's my speaker giving a problem. We have some questions, but let's see, I'm just going to start. Don Harper has a question.
Yeah, hi, Andrew. Thanks for coming. On the Smith Cove Park, as you know, that there's actually permits already filed for Smith Cove Park, and parks broken into two parts, and to phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 was supposed to be done and was promised, of course, throughout the campaign for the Metropolitan Parks District, would be done in the first 6 years of the Parks District, of the creation of the Parks District. And so in phase 2 was then going to be completed in the next 6-year budget. So here we are now in the next 6-year budget. And I saw that there was $1 million in there for Smith Cove Park, phase 2. And then it was all of a sudden it disappeared in the budget consideration. So I have a real attitude about the way that the Parks District was sold to the citizens of Seattle, and how between the mayor and the city council and the board of the Parks District broke their promises to the citizens of Seattle in 4 years of creating the Parks District. So I'm hoping that you can bring this back into compliance and honor the promises that were made to our community and others to complete both phases of Smith Cove Park. Because otherwise you're actually asking us to wait 18 years from the time of purchase of that property in order to get a complete park. So would appreciate to understand what your understanding is on both phases. I'm pretty sure that the first phase is in there. I'm not sure that it includes the off-leash area. At one point, they were cutting out the off-leash area to save money, and they were putting it into phase 2. And so I'd like to know where phase 2 is in the budget, if it's possible for you to know that right offhand. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I've just written that down. We're happy to get a more detailed answer on exactly the sequencing. But another thing I would point out too, Don, I think what you're referring to is what the Board of Parks Commissioners has like sent forward as sort of an initial ask. In terms of our Metropolitan Park District planning, we aren't going to approve the final park district until September. So the council as the board of, as the Metropolitan Park District Board, we're going to have probably a more expansive vision of what we want the park district to do. So I wouldn't go by the Board of Park Commissioners recommendations as binding. They also don't, they weren't as bold in what they proffered to us in terms of bonding certain projects to free up some capacity and a couple of other things. So all of that is just to say, my understanding is both phases are intended to be fully funded and front loaded in the second, well, in the renewal of the levy, the district levy. And we will get back to you on that. And if that isn't what the recommendation has been from the Board of Park Commissioners, that's certainly what I want to put into the renewal in September. So what you said accords with what I want to put in there. But again, I don't exactly know, to your point of whether the phase 2 was put in and then taken out by the park commissioners. I don't know right now if that's the case, but we can look into it and email you and Paula.
Great. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 more questions. It's going to be Bob Kettle, Sharon Levine, and Josh Daniel. But Bob, go ahead. You're
okay. I will go. I thought Josh was ahead of me, but I'll jump ahead of Josh, my neighbor. Andrew, just 2 quick questions. One, with my VFW hat on, I've been engaging with the city, the Seattle Center and the school district regarding the memorial wall at Memorial Stadium, and primarily with those, and not so much with you, but love to speak with you at some point on that. If you have any questions, the VFW and the other veteran service organizations really care what's happening with the memorial wall at Memorial Stadium, and how that proceeds and the timelines and the being part of the process to ensure that it's done right, because right now the memorial wall is not fitting for the nearly 750 young people that died in World War II. That's question 1. The question 2, with public safety in mind, as you know, there's a lot of issues that we work, and we can spend a whole meeting talking about things. One question, no, and this will go to my committee report, but I thought I'd take this opportunity, is that we have an individual on Garfield at 7th, at 6th, and at 5th who's been creating havoc and terrorizing the neighborhood, and this has been ongoing. And the latest, we have Captain Strand saying that the SPD is going to have the crisis response team work this, but this seems like a perfect example of what a non-SPD kind of response should be offered by the city. It's like a perfect example of, as we talked about reform, the different programs you've mentioned, that would be a great way to address this issue before it gets tragic, because it can definitely, he's moving in that direction. At some point, it's going to be an SPD answer to this, and it's going to be tragic, more so than it already is. And I was wondering, because right now, like the email that we received, Captain Strand says, the crisis response team, whereas the other programs that have been proffered don't seem to be able to come up to Queen Anne to address the situation with that individual. So it's just kind of like an example, a case study, if you will, of where we are regarding non-SPD options.
Yeah, so responding to your first question, Bob, on the memorial wall, I am happy to talk to you about that as we get further along on exactly what is going to happen to Memorial Stadium. I don't know if Rick is still on here, but that's going to be a really big project in a great way. I mean, I think Memorial Stadium right now is kind of the sore thumb of the campus. We've sort of fixed every other portion of the campus, and we still have this deteriorating large stadium walled off from the rest of the center campus, and we could do a lot more with that space in terms of opening up a whole additional stadium. And that could include a place of reverence, respect, and maintenance of that memorial in a way that, you know, I mean, it's been facing a parking lot for decades. And there's a lot of work we need to do there. So I'm happy to work with you and the BFW to figure out how we integrate you into that project to make sure that that memorial is handled with the respect and the dignity that, you know, that it deserves, and maintaining it as part of that project, and amplifying its role, its presence, and its incorporation into whatever succeeding project is there. So definitely, as we get closer to those discussions happening, let's talk about that. And Parker, can you actually make a note to keep Bob in the loop on Memorial Stadium progress if you're listening here? On the public safety discussion, I know exactly who you're talking about, Bob, and I've been engaged with those neighbors in the West Precinct since at least the last week of April. And I know this has been going on longer than this, even to the point of getting a pretty good description from a community member and trying to see if we could find out if that individual is enrolled in any services. There was a there was a theory that the individual potentially lived in the Inner Bay Tiny House Village. We were able to confirm that he doesn't. And I think that we suspect that he probably lives in an encampment in or around Kinnear Park. To your broader point about how that individual would probably be amenable to some kind of alternative response, probably it sounds like he has a variety of hoarder and other kind of behavioral health issues that manifest in public that someone with appropriate de-escalation training would probably be able to engage with. Clearly, if he's still able to generally be in the community and hasn't had an altercation that's escalated to either him or someone else getting significantly injured, indicates that someone could probably enroll him in some kind of service if he was appropriately approached. We had a very large and long and frustrating public safety committee meeting in mid-May with the police department about this discussion. The long and the short of it is that the police union has made it publicly very clear they're not very interested in these alternative responses. Which is their prerogative and their right. I think it's a shame, given that in major cities all over the country, police unions and police leadership are acknowledging that some level of alternative response or division of these duties traditionally afforded to police is essential, given that no police department nationally is meeting their hiring goals for police, let alone ours. I mentioned the other day, I mean, we're talking about mental health response, but even things like directing traffic at sporting events, something parking enforcement officers can do and are qualified to do. Seattle police so far this year have spent 7,600 hours directing traffic. So that's time they could be spending doing other stuff, potentially investigating sexual assault crimes, which it was reported in the news today has been an understaffed and under-resourced function of the department. And at a certain point, to your point, Bob, I mean, these are policy choices that the city is making. I know the Harrell administration is committed to developing these alternative responses. Actually, Paul, I apologize. I forgot that you asked this question earlier, and I went straight to another topic.
That's okay.
But the issue continues to be that we have a very powerful police union. That police union is determined to obstruct a lot of these reforms. And the city is continuing to work through exactly how we can do this. And I think the city needs to be bold on this and really make sure that we are putting forward a policy that is good, not just for the community, but good for the police officers as well, in terms of reducing their duties. I think it's an untenable strategy for them to obstruct every possible alternative thing, because there's no way at least in the short term, that we're going to be able to do all the things we want to have done by police officers. It's just not possible. And, you know, the implications for the city's public safety, I think, are pretty daunting. So, you know, when I have more substantive things to report back on that, I certainly will. I think in the meantime, you know, I appreciate Captain Strand and Lieutenant Brown being very accessible to try to figure something out with this particular individual on 7th Avenue who is causing a lot of public disturbances. And my hope is that within our existing resources, we'll be able to manage for that person. But you're right. I mean, we should have a robust public health response system like so many other cities in the country are doing, and that so many cities have been building over the last 2 years. And we're very far behind on that work. So, you know, I was hoping I'd have something better to say on that after the meeting in May, but it was basically another meeting of we need to think about this a lot longer from the police department. Andrew Meyerberg, the director of public safety, did indicate that the mayor's office wasn't necessarily going to wait on the police department to move on alternatives. So, you know, I've definitely sent and proffered a number of different proposals on how we might be able to move quicker on that. But I think that's kind of where we are with the Harrell administration. I think that Mayor Harrell has done a good job concentrating existing police resources in a way that's maximizing their impact, given our limitations. And that's shown a lot of results in 5 months. But I think we're at the point where we need to start diversifying the people doing public safety work, in addition to seeking to attract and retain a full hiring class of police this year, which the council has also been very supportive of Mayor Harrell's efforts to do. But even with that, we're still probably looking at a net loss of officers this year, just a shallower net loss than what we would have had had we not had a more aggressive recruiting strategy. So again, that necessitates the kind of responders that you're talking about, Bob. And I think we have a better administration now to pursue that, that's more interested in that work and has more enthusiasm for pursuing it. But I just wish the police were a little more creative and a little bit more willing to do things that their peers in, you know, Fort Worth, St. Louis, you know, Dallas, Eugene, I mean, Denver, go down the list, are doing. I don't think our people are any more sick or violent than any other major American city. And I think they warrant the same kind of, you know, bespoke approach to what they're dealing with. So.
We're going to move along here with a couple more questions and then get on with our business meeting too. So Sharon, you're next up, and then Josh.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew. I'd like you to comment on a couple of two issues, if you would, please. And then if there's time, I'd like to make a quick comment about Smith Cove. But the first issue is about this council having for at least 20 years written, cajoled, begged city officials to establish a process and to appropriate money for us to get an Upper Queen Anne dog off leash area. And I know we brought this issue up to you and Parker on several occasions, and I just wanted to know, implore you to advocate for your city council colleagues to secure funds in this next Park District budget to establish an Upper Queen Anne dog off leash area. Could you comment about that? And then I have another issue.
Yeah, that's one of my top priorities for the renewal. You know, it's going to be really great, candidly, for Queen Anne having me be the president of the renewal. Like just to put that out there. I'm not saying that to say to the detriment of other districts, definitely not. And we're having a good round working with my colleagues on the things they want to see and helping really harmonize and rationalize a park district renewal. But you know, part of that is going to definitely make sure that some of our big ticket items, and we've discussed Smith Cove Park, also this an off leash dog area on Upper Queen Anne is a really big priority for us. And you know, I think that we could, you know, we're not the only ones that want an off leash dog area in our district. So we might be able to have a component of the Metropolitan Park District renewal, you know, be sort of a measure of like, you know, doing a little bit of bonding to get like, 5 or 6 additional off-leash areas or something over the course of the next renewal. So there's a lot of demand for it, and yes, it's a big priority.
Thank you. I know that Ferguson Park has been trying to get one for years, and the International District, there are, as you say, other communities. Another issue that doesn't pertain to Queen Anne particularly, but I had to go to Lowe's on Aurora today. And this is something that just irritates me every time that I go up and down Aurora, and that's the 50 or so prostitutes that line the entire strip of Aurora. And it just so happened that in front of Krispy Kreme this afternoon, there were 2 police officers talking to someone in front over something that had happened. And I went into Krispy Kreme, through the drive-through to get a donut and tried to call one over. And he said, "I'm busy now." And I said, "Well, can you do something about the prostitutes on Aurora?" He says, "We hear you." I've talked to other police officers and nothing is being done. And it's just totally outrageous. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I wish you just legalize it, give them a brothel, put them somewhere, and get all these Johns off of Aurora and out of the parking lots at Lowe's and Firestone, and get the trash cleaned up, because of that, there are men circulating continually, and there's trash everywhere, and there are half-naked ladies standing all up and down Aurora. So what is the conversation about that, and what is being done about it?
Yeah, so I'd have to check in with I guess the police department and the city attorney's office on that issue. Since it's not, as you say, since that stretch of Aurora is not in my district, that particular sex work situation isn't something that we've had to engage with. We have had situations downtown and in kind of that area between South Lake Union and Uptown, where there have been large concentrations of people engaged in sex work. And we've had luck in those cases where those folks have been able to engage with Just Care and the Defender Association and get some assistance and not be in a position to need to engage in sex work anymore. But I think that the culture of that work downtown is different from what happens up on Aurora. But I'm happy to look into it and see if there's any kind of work that the North Precinct is doing on that. I would say that historically, the general strategy of the city has been to treat sex workers as people in need of services rather than criminals, which I think sounds in keeping with some of the things you indicated, that you're not necessarily calling for cracking down on them criminally, but like figuring something out, because it's you don't want to have large open air areas where people are selling sex. I mean, that's certainly case. So there's certain organizations like Greenlight Project, and the name is spacing, but I've done work through my committee on the homelessness issue with a group that is active in organizing and connecting people engaged in sex work to the services. Aurora Commons. Aurora Commons has been an organization too. But again, that's just my awareness from down here. I'm happy to look into it and send.
So there's no citywide conversation then. I personally feel, and this is just my personal thing, is that you should just establish a place where I don't see it as a social problem as much as just a community issue. And I'd rather see you establish brothels or a safe place for them to congregate and have everybody go to that one area in the same way you're considering lots for RVs. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but I understand that people think it's some kind of social problem. But what it is now, it's like just a city problem. There's trash, there are people circulating, it's dangerous. The women are standing in the bus lane of Aurora, and today half of them had their breasts hanging out, and people are gawking at them, it's probably going to cause traffic accidents. I mean, somebody needs to do something about it. So I'm surprised that the full council hasn't had a discussion about it. I guess I want to.
Yeah, I mean, not that specifically. I mean, part of it too, right, is there's not a whole lot for that we can do. I mean, we can't legalize prostitution. I mean, I guess we could set up, and I don't want to belabor this, like we can take this offline, but the general issue is the general regulatory regime for this has been basically put through the law enforcement assisted diversion program for the most part. And I don't quite know how active they are in the North Precinct. That's just how in the city center we've tended to deal with it. So I do know that there's some nonprofits that are active up there that are trying to do something, and that the city could do a better job supporting. And I am supportive of supporting their work, but I just don't know where that stands at the moment. Because again, I mean, look, I have lots of issues of extreme poverty and public disorder in my district I'm trying to deal with, right? So like, let alone getting involved in, there were similar issues that I think Paul and Bob could speak to with the friggin' the motel next to the Aurora Bridge, sort of related, obviously, but I would have to follow up offline with what specifically is going on in North Seattle on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Just one quick comment as someone who was, intimately involved in the establishment of the Smith Cove Park. I'm not sure. I just want to ensure that the dog off leash area is definitely incorporated in that, because it's the off leash people that were as active as any other contingent. And there was a petition submitted with at least 150 names. And this was long before probably the current Board of Park Commissioners took their seats, and they did not attend all the meetings, but everything was negotiated and promised. And there was a lot of work that went into this for over a period of a couple of years, and there were promises made to the community. So I just want to make sure that that dog off leash area is a part of the project initially. And it was originally 1 acre, and they already cut it down to ½ acre. And then this talk about it being eliminated is very concerning. So if I heard you correctly, you're going to ensure that it is a part of the project, or I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, that is my expectation. And we write the council, like from going and reviewing the Metropolitan Parks District and the authorizing language and everything else, like it entirely resides with the council for the most part, because we are the we are the park district, like as the board, like the city council is the park district board. So I think that even insulates it from things like a veto or whatever else, because it's technically a separate government, right? So we have an awful lot of power to set what we want in it, and I'm hoping that as colleagues, we will all give each other a lot of deference to how we want to structure projects based on feedback from stakeholders in our own districts, and that will certainly include, as we are really making plain here today, that will really include making sure that the Smith Cove Park has an off-leash area. So
Great. Now we've got to go to Josh and for one last question, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
I'll try to keep my question as brief as possible.
Thank you.
Andrew, my 5-year-old son starts kindergarten at Co in the fall. And after last week, my wife and I have started serious discussions about whether we should have him at a private school simply to keep him safe. There's no single issue that is more important to me than my son being safe at school. And I realize that this is more of a school district issue, state issue, county issue. There are lots of jurisdictions involved, but any chance I get to talk to any public official about kids being safe in their schools, I'm going to do. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what the city, you personally, anyone can be doing to try to make sure that kids are safe.
I mean, I would say that the partnership between the Seattle Public Schools and the city as relates to the safety of our public schools has been pretty strong in the last couple of years, even during COVID. You know, even in situations where we had like, you know, the just kind of a, you know, a very awkward and untenable longstanding situation between an encampment that presented with lots of different issues at Bitter Lake and Broadview Elementary was able to be managed without any significant public safety crisis arising due to our ability to work through and mitigate that situation and make sure there was outreach and services and everything else and city presence. I mean, I would say this. I mean, I you know, I live in the same neighborhood where Co Elementary School is. I think that you can safely and confidently send your child to Co Elementary, speaking specifically about that school. I think that the Upper Queen Anne neighborhood has been a very resilient neighborhood over the course of COVID. There's an active business district.
Sorry, I hate to interrupt you. I was being super, I should have been more specific. I mean, school shootings.
Oh, right. Yes, I understood. So, you know, reading, I feel more depressed, powerless, and frustrated than anybody every time we have one of these completely preventable and horrific shootings, and the recent shooting in Texas that we've all been digesting over the last week, and seeing the images and just the absolutely devastated and heartbroken community and parents there, and then realizing that we're very limited in what we can do to prevent things like that from occurring here. And to your point about private versus public school, I don't know that it makes a significant difference. I mean, all of our schools exist in a community and society that allows almost anyone under any circumstances to get a weapon of war and carry it around the community and use it to inflict extreme violence. So, you know, I think that what it really comes down to is when we have people like these candidates for the state legislature who were here today, follow up with them and really make it plain, like, you know, repeal the state preemption law that prevents me, you know, because I've spent all last week being like, hey, what can we do as a city? Like, can we ban guns from places? And we have a broad local preemption law. Prevents local jurisdictions from doing just about anything on guns. It reserves that province to the state. And then we have some of the strongest protections in the country on gun control, but we still don't have things like an assault weapon ban. Like, why should anyone be able to buy an AR-15? So, you know, we have this open seat for the legislature. Strongly encourage people to ask those candidates, like, what are you going to do to make this a jurisdiction where people cannot, you know, get an AR-15 and haul it into a school or haul it into anywhere for that matter. I'm really proud to be represented by Liz Berry, who just wrote a great editorial talking about the need for an assault weapons ban and has been a great leader on gun responsibility and gun control. So, you know, I think that it's been very frustrating as a city official. There's not really a whole lot we can do legislatively. We still have a big enforcement role, obviously, and you know, our city attorney's office has been really good at seeking extreme risk protection orders to keep guns away from people who you know, have a history of domestic violence or maybe have expressed suicidal ideation and have a gun. But you know, there's a lot more the state can do. And I think we need to collectively as a community really lean on them. And I think that Mayor Harrell and the council are going to be very outspoken on things we want to see from the state in the coming weeks. But I just wish we could pair that with actually passing laws and policies, but we're so hemmed in. It's incredibly frustrating.
That's a great topic to wrap up the discussion on. Thank you so much, Councilmember Lewis, for your time this evening. And just as an aside, I am pursuing somebody to speak at hopefully our next meeting about Washington's red flag laws to find out more about what they are, how they work, what's missing, and so forth, and perhaps that discussion will lead to what can we as community representatives and community members do. So thank you again. And we're going to move. There are probably some more questions in the chat, but we've got to move along for the rest of our meeting here really quickly. So, okay, so with that, I don't think I officially called the meeting to order, but it is. And I think, Joe, you are doing minutes this evening, but I have a question on the last month's minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, or changes? And I'm going to ask for a motion to approve. Somebody wave their hand.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. And seconded was.
Second.
Okay, got it. Okay, are there any objections? Then we'll consider those minutes passed. And Joe, you've got the treasurer's report tonight. Ben is off climbing Rainier.
Sure. For the sake of time, I'll make this quick. We have two accounts that Ben typically updates us on. There's the general account and the appeals account. In the general account, we have a balance of $1778.97, $1,778.97. In the appeals account, we have $1,425.49. Any questions on that?
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. Moving along quickly, a few things that we will be at the community booth at the Queen Anne Farmers Market this next week on June 9th. I need to know from anyone who's on the board if you plan to be there for any part of the time. They've asked that we be there at 2:30 to get set up. The market officially opens at 3, but there are always people there a little early, and that we have people there until 7:30. So if you can spend a couple of hours or 3 hours or something, let me know as soon as possible so that I can make sure we've got folks to cover all the time slots. Do we have an elections committee update, Josh or Sean? I know Beth isn't here this evening. We do have our candidates forum on the 15th of June at 6 p.m., which we're doing jointly with the Magnolia Community Council. And Josh, do you have anything to add?
I don't. Sean, am I forgetting anything we need to let folks know about?
So I think the notice went out to everybody about it. There will probably be more notifications, but sign up on the sign up link and join us on the 15th to hear about what the candidates are representing.
Yep. I guess one thing is just worth pointing out on this one. We are doing it in concert with Magnolia, as Paula pointed out, and they really are taking the lead on it. So we're happily supporting it, putting our name on it and getting word out about it. And I think I'm helping with some administrative stuff to just make sure people get signed in and so on into the meeting. But they are moderating it. They're kind of deciding how the format will be, what questions will be, all that sort of stuff. So we're very curious to see how that goes, but we're happy to support them and getting candidates out there.
And I believe that Stephanie Ballard, who is their chair, will be moderating this particular forum as well.
That's my understanding.
I will be in beautiful New Braunfels, Texas, hopefully attending the meeting, but having a Texas approach to it. So, okay, really quickly then, next meeting, we will talk about our upcoming board elections, which will be happening in September. So that's coming up really fast. So obviously we've got a number of people who will be up for election. And we need to talk about who's going to be on that committee, run the process, and so forth and so on. I will send some information in the newsletter, and I'll give it to Joe to put in the minutes as well. The redistricting public forum for our district has been scheduled for July 21st from 5:30 to 7:30. There is a meeting that's in person at Bertha night Landis room in City Hall, and there will also be a virtual component. So if you're interested in the redistricting effort, that's your opportunity to provide public input. Caroline has been working on outreach for the Queen Anne schools. And Caroline, do you want to make a quick update on what's been going on with that?
Sure. I had a really good meeting with Shannon Connor, who's the principal of McClure Middle School. And turns out we have a fair amount of overlapping interests. First, she was talking about she had the whole school out on the field because of a fire drill, and got to watch people with the dogs on off leash running around, not picking up dog poop, etc. So I think she'd be somebody who'd be supportive of an off leash dog park on any part of Queen Anne. She was interested to hear about the organization of the block watch captains on Queen Anne, and that could be a possible resource in the event there was some thing where the school really need a lot of help quickly. She wanted to be connected to and wasn't aware that the fire department now had somebody who had a role in emergency preparedness and so forth, because in the event of a major earthquake or major event at the school, they actually take them all out of that building and somewhere else. And she wanted to confirm what that was about. I talked to her about whether next year when they're doing their duck and cover training, if they'd be open to accepting some handouts for the kids to take home about how the families should prepare, like what do you need for water, what do you need for food, and so better preparedness working from the kids up to their parents. She was all in favor of that. She was interested in also pursuing some traffic safety, like a safe crossing right in front of the school, because she said middle school kids, this was her words, particularly the boys, just run across the street, don't pay any attention, don't look either way. And traffic's been really ripping along there, and she just wants to make sure nobody gets hurt. Last but not least, I asked if she was familiar with the Washington red flag law. She wasn't. She would be very interested in learning more about it, which tells me there's a big hole in that. I don't think there's ever been a training for school officials to know about that law. And I think I'm going to contact somebody at the King County Prosecutor's Office to see what we can do around there. So.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, really quickly, can we have some quick updates from the committee heads? Denny, I see you, so you get to start. You're so lucky.
Okay, mine will be short. We don't have a lot going on right now. Either most of the projects are still in permit. The only one that I can kind of report on, and you guys probably all know about it, Safeway is going to be shutting down here. The last date I have was the 5th. So if you want to, I don't know if there's any bargains or not left in there, but you better get shopping or at least go in one more time to say goodbye. The other thing is David Mooring, who is the Magnolia Community Council member, has been reappointed to Seattle Urban Forestry Commission, which is good for us because they report to the mayor. And with all of the developing going on, we're hoping to get a balance between developing stuff, but still keeping some trees around. So that's good news. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Denny. Don, quick comments on parks in addition to what we've already talked about?
You bet. We already covered Smith Cove. That's kind of what we covered at the parks meeting. Also, we did off-leash areas, which nothing really happened there, except that there is a person that stepped up. Her name is Shannon. I think it's Praetoris. She is a realtor here, lives on Queen Anne. She wants to gather people around to get a big group together of people who want to do off leash. She seems to be pretty fired up and charged. So anyone who would like me to pass on your contact information to her, just email me. She's looking for people to get a very large group going to help make a presence known, why there should be an off leash area. So that was it. NAC, we really didn't cover anything new from what we did last time. So we're going to have a traffic study towards the end of the summer when all the cruise ships are there and the fishing fleets are in. So that's it. 2 for 1. I'm done.
Thanks, sir. Public safety, Bob, you've got a couple things coming up.
Just quickly, yes, one item talked with Councilmember Lewis is that we do have an individual that's creating some big challenges on 7th, basically Garfield 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th in that area, and then as he mentioned, probably back down towards Kinnear, and we're working with the police on that, as you know, Paula, but for everybody else's attention. That's hopefully, and he's also the person, by the way, who's doing all the Dr. Hines tagging previously. So this is an ongoing issue. Hillside's closed up, but it's become a graffiti mess. But we're still dealing with some challenges on Aurora, to include with the formerly known as Aloha Inn. But that's continue to work that through our different options that we have, and then on the flip side of the hill, on the west side of the hill, south of the Ballard Bridge, we have what another kind of called the car wash chop shop. That's kind of stalled. It's been cleaned up a little bit, but it's still there. 1 RV out of the 2 have been removed. That's just south of that location. And I'm trying to get a hold of Jeannie Gilder, who is the owner of the property and who leases it to Reef Parking. I've been failing thus far, trying to go through Seattle Storm. And no response yet. But hopefully, if anybody knows Jeannie Gilder, we would love to work with her, as we've done with the owners of the Hillside, to get the public safety challenge resolved. So if you do, please contact me. Great work on the RV encampment behind Albert Lee and the Builders Hardware on Elliott and 15th. That was a big win, and the businesses in that area are very happy with the efforts done to do that because of the crime that was kind of centered out of that area that was hitting those businesses. As you mentioned, some things coming up. We do have a meeting this month. It will be on Block Watch and SNAP, working the SNAP piece, and that's to do this ahead of the summer because we have Night Out coming in August, and we've done this in the past where we try to promote Block Watch to have more Block Watch groups, which is very beneficial to Queen Anne. And also kind of highlight the Night Out program where we get everybody and with their neighbors on the streets to build up the the camaraderie that we have here on the hill with our immediate neighborhoods. And also a week tomorrow, actually a week today, we'll have a walkabout with Captain Strand, the West Precinct Commander. And one last thing, thank you for all those that participated in the day of service. With my public safety committee hat on, because a lot of them did a lot of work with graffiti, and that's really sets a tone on the public safety front. So thank you for those that participated. And yes, I do know that graffiti's back on 7-Eleven plus the businesses just to the north of that, which is very frustrating to me. And I did talk to a police officer, and to your question, Paula, that came offline to me, yes, find it, fix it is your friend, and I always report.
Sharon, quick question.
Bob, is your group doing anything about the remaining RVs on West Nickerson?
I am.
Oh, good. There are just 3 left.
Yep. One keeps moving back and forth. So yep, I'm all over.
I'll check with that. I spoke to a police officer that said, oh geez, I can't remember now, a month ago. I thought that was moving in a good direction, but I'll double check.
It is moving in a good direction. It's not moving in a done direction, but yeah, we keep working with the same people. So anyway, and Jasmine, transportation, are you still, oh, you're here? Yeah.
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, we had a really great meeting this month with Mark Ostro from the Queen Anne Greenways group. He was presenting on some plans to start working on a Crockett Street Plaza, which is in very early stage, but would be a permanent pedestrianization of a small little half block right in front of like the Menchie's and was it Big Mac's is
Big
the name,
Macs,
current
yeah,
name?
Big Macs
Yeah, Big
burgers.
Mac's. Yeah. So it was interesting because when we were pulling it up on Google Maps, then Google thinks it's still a pedestrianized plaza. So that'll just make it that much easier.
Nope.
Exactly. But yeah, so we'll continue to talk about that. We gave an update on the Florentia project and some of the stalling that has happened, but there's still a lot of work to be done and whatnot. And we thank Councilmember Lewis for pushing on that. And we will, if you have anything that you want to talk about this month, send me an email and I'll let folks know closer to the third Thursday if we'll be having a meeting.
Great, thanks, Jasmine. I just will mention, I think I noticed when I put this redistricting meeting on the calendar, I think it's also the third Thursday, but we can connect on that if, in case you want to have your meeting. Well, I guess it would be,
Ooh,
it would
yes.
be over by then. It would be 5 to, yeah, okay. So no conflict there. Okay, never mind.
Okay, sweet.
Okay, thank you, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a quick question, just because it ties into
Yeah.
transportation. And it's kind of for you and Paul, I think, Jasmine, but unless I misunderstood or didn't hear correctly or everything, I was a little disappointed that Andrew Lewis knew much more about light rail and Lower Queen Anne than he did on what was going on for us in the Inner Bay down the 15th Avenue West corridor. And I'm just wondering if I just missed him, being as knowledgeable about what we have looked at between Magnolia and Queen Anne and where the light rail would be going there.
I'll speak to that because what I got the impression about is that, so the city is providing their input on this thing now. And I think there were more questions around the Mercer or what's the other street? But anyway, around where that station was going to be and the impacts. We've addressed the questions for the Interbay Ballard leg. And so, I mean, there weren't really any burning questions other than just the comments that we made and the questions that we had already asked. So I think that there's something about the Mercer Street. If they do a cut and cover tunnel under Mercer Street, you can imagine what that's going to mean. So
it was just that on the light rail, there are more than one option that was presented to us as the options that Sound Transit was providing us. And so yes. we did pick parts. It seemed like we picked parts from a couple of them. And then of course, Magnolia has always wanted one closer to Magnolia, more like on 17th, right? West, which is something that so I mean, I just felt like there's some issues in there for us to fight for as much as, and I don't think of it as a done deal. I would rather hear Andrew, I'd like to hear Andrew go, got it. Yes, I see what you want. Boy, we're fighting for that too. That's the point that I missed.
All right, not a done deal. And actually, when the Magnolia Community Council and we submitted the same comments or the same ability for people to comment. So we are pushing not for just a 17th Street station, but a Smith Cove station. They call it Smith Cove. It's not really Smith Cove, but that's what they call it there. Anyway, because those are the stations that we need, and they are also the stations that support a tunnel under the ship canal. So that's really the big driver behind a lot of what happens in their bay. Mike, the paragraph he was talking to that did not get included in the Uptown Alliance letter, but was included as part of the joint communications with Magnolia, and will continue to be included, is that if we don't have feeder, some sort of easy, safe, quick, and clean transit feeders that get you and me from where we live, or a few blocks from where we live, to that light rail station, we aren't going to use it. And so that's going to be true of a vast part of the geography around those light rail stations. Is you've got to have quick and easy ways, because once people get in their cars, they're probably not going to go to that light rail station. There's no place to park, and you're going to end up driving. So defeats the purpose. That'll be true of everybody in Magnolia as well, because the stations are not, they're not in a central location. They're in the industrial area there. So anyway, okay. So you'll hear more about that. It's by far not even close. So yeah, I'll probably be dead and gone before it gets that way. But we'll keep an update on that. Okay, really quickly, and then we'll shut the meeting down. I'll echo Bob's thank you to everybody who participated in the 1 day of service. I had some really candid shots to show, but I'll save those for the newsletter. So take a look in the newsletter. You'll see pictures of some people who participated. It was a really great turnout. Golly, there were a lot of people out doing things. And the city was fabulous at picking up the trash and stuff. It was like gone the next day. So there are just a couple that got missed, and I think they just didn't get notice of them. Queen Anne Days will be September 17th this year, and will likely be on Crockett and First West, because the playfield will be closed, so they can't use the playfield there at the community center. And I think that is all I have, other than I have some reach out to a senator I was in the Washington legislature who I was referred to, who is apparently very knowledgeable about the red flag laws, and I'm going to see if I can get him to speak to our next council meeting. So is there anything else for the good of the order? There are some questions here. We'll have to just address those separately, but anything else? Or if not, we're good. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. We'll see you hopefully on the 9th.